Hey, 3D Basics class, it's week 3. Welcome. Thanks for watching. Today we're going to cover modeling tools and using edit mode in Blender. So this is another kind of big step for learning Blender. But this is, once we kind of talk about this is going to kind of hopefully sort of unlock some things in your head on how this all works, how you create things in Blender and in a 3D space. So this one's another kind of exciting one. You also are going to have we're going to talk about assignment 2 in this lecture. And we'll maybe talk about how I might start assignment 2. Okay, so let's hop over to Blender, and we will begin with a new general file. Okay, so hopefully you have had enough practice moving around in your workspace. I'm going to just kind of continue to sort of call out my keystrokes and stuff as much as I can here, and hopefully you can also see my keystrokes down here on the bottom right of the screen and also my mouse clicks. So just quick refresher: to rotate around the world, I click and hold the middle mouse wheel and move it around, or you can left click and drag on your axes up here. G is for grab, R is for rotate, S is for scale. If you control click middle mouse wheel is zoom in, shift click middle mouse wheel is move around your view. Also these buttons are here as well. We'll talk about that button next week. Also orthographic views 1, 3, 7, and on your number pad, or alternately going viewpoint and selecting in there. Okay. Delete that. Delete everything. Delete the camera. Delete the light. Delete the cube. We have an empty scene collection up here. Okay. Shift A to add a new mesh. Let's add a basic cube back in here. We don't need to change any of our add cube parameters. Okay, so previously we've only edited the object itself. We've moved the object as a whole. But now we need to learn about how to edit within the object. So, easiest way to change from object mode, which is where we are now, where you can manipulate objects, to edit mode is by hitting the tab key. With an object selected, you hit the tab key. So if you don't have the cube selected, if you do tab, I guess it still does it anyway. I didn't know that. Okay, with the cube selected, hit tab for edit mode, and then tab to return to object mode. So you can kind of see top left here. There are several different modes. We'll cover many of these, but object mode is on the top. You can also just select edit mode like this. A couple of things happen when we're in edit mode, so just take note. Look up here if you're ever confused. So we still have our basic transform tools up here on the left: move, rotate, scale, transform. But we have several more that we'll talk about: extrude, insert faces, bevel, loop cut, knife, poly build, spin, smooth. Some of these ones are not as exciting. These first handful here, these first like 4 or 5 are biggies, and they're going to get a lot done for you. Okay, so before we talk about the tools, let's look at what we're seeing here. So edit mode, we are now more closely seeing the different parts of our cube. So our cube has, or all of your meshes in 3D have 3 things. They have faces, they have edges, and they have vertices. Faces, edges, and vertices. So a face is kind of the meat of it, the flat side, also known as a polygon here in 3D. An edge is the line where 2 faces meet. So this is an edge here, and a vertice is a point where edges meet. So like the corners here. So you can see up here on the top left, next to where it says edit mode, there's these 3 little buttons, 3 little symbols. And these are your different select modes. So this one here is vertex selection mode. This next one here is edge selection mode. And the third one here is face select mode. So you can select these different aspects. So right now we're in vertex select mode. So if right now I have a select box here. There's a couple other selection tools: tweak, select circle, select lasso. I think select box makes the most sense for me. So anyway, I can drag a box around these vertexes here and select it. And by selecting a vertex, it becomes orange. You can select multiple vertexes. So like if we get the right angle here, you can select these two vertices and they become orange. We can select these, all four of these on this side, and you can select all of these like this and select a bunch. Note that by default, we're not selecting through anything. We don't select anything on the back side. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So I'm going to select one of these vertexes. Now all of the same transform shortcuts to move objects apply to vertices, edges, and faces as well. So if I have a vertex selected here and I'm in edit mode, I can tap the G key and I can move this vertex around. I can select this one, G to grab, left click to apply, or I can G to grab, right click to cancel. If I have two, so really G you can't scale. If I hit S, you can't scale a single vertex, or if I hit R, you can't scale or rotate a single vertex. But if you have two selected, so like if I go down here and grab these two, this one, to select multiple, obviously you can click and drag over both of them. But if you have one selected and you want to select an additional one, you hold down the Shift key and select the other one. Now we're selecting both. So like if you've got one selected, hold down Shift, you can select another one, or a third, or a fourth. To do the opposite, I believe it's Control. So like if you have three selected, and it's like, you know what, I don't want this one. If you hold down Control, it removes the selection. Anyway, so with two vertexes selected, I can G grab and move it around like this. Or I can R rotate, so it's just going to rotate these two vertices like this. Or you can S scale, and it moves them further apart, all kind of along their plane, or along their edge. One other handy trick about moving vertices, so G is just regular grab, but if you tap G twice, if you go GG, you can move along one of these edges, so you can snap to the edges. This can come in handy sometimes. So G is just regular grab. GG is move along an edge. Yeah, like orthographic views, that still works. You can kind of line things up closely here. Yeah, so that's moving vertices. So selecting edges, you can click up here. You can now select edges, and so that when you select, your active selection with an edge actually becomes white. But then if you hold down Shift, you can click on multiple edges like this. So yeah, let's see. So if I select one edge like this, I can S scale this, or G grab and rotate, R, whoops, I accidentally hit T to move my toolbar there, R rotate, etc. And then faces obviously works pretty much the same way. G to grab, R to rotate, S to scale. Okay. A really handy keyboard shortcut to toggle between these is the numbers on the top of your keypad, so above your letter keys. 1 switches to vertex select, 2 is edge select, 3 is face select. So it goes right along a row. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So hopefully you can see me changing them up here along the top. 1 vertex select, 2 edge select, 3 face select. Okay. Now, I'm gonna tab to go back into object mode, and I'm gonna delete this cube. Start fresh. Shift A. I'm in object mode. Shift A. Add a cube. Great. Let me just show you an example of why it's important to add things only in object mode. So if I go to edit mode like this, and I move my cube kind of over here a little bit, and then I go Shift A while I'm still in edit mode, and I say, oh yeah, now add a monkey. Move the monkey over here. Because I did this in object mode, because I added my monkey in edit mode, tab. If I go back to object mode, these are one object. My monkey cube is just a cube. So just be careful of that. So I'm going to undo. Great. Okay, let's tab edit mode. Let's talk about our different tools. The first one I want you to talk about, or I want you to look at, is extrude. Extrude region. This one is, you pretty much want to be in face select mode when you do this. So what extrude does, so if you click on a face here, you're greeted with this this little plus button. And what extrude does is it's going to pull a new shape out of that face. So if I go, I've extruded a new kind of box out of the top here. And if I actually go inside the box and look around, it's still like hollow. There's not like the top of the box is like, continued to go upwards, if that makes sense. But extrude is just like pull out. So like if I click on this one here, I can hit this little plus button and pull this out. I can hit this one, click on this one here, pull that button out, pull that yellow guy out. So now we're actually like building. This is extrude. And once you have one selected, you can still do the usual stuff. You can rotate it and move it and scale it down and do kind of fun things like this. So E, extrude, S, scale, G, move. Click on this one, pull that out, scale it up. I think I accidentally gave away a keyboard shortcut a moment ago. So yeah, you can select this tool, but if you have the select box or your selection tool, the keyboard shortcut to extrude is really easy. It's just E. E for extrude, E, extrude, E, extrude. And same thing applies too with your left click versus right click. So if I have this face selected here, I'm in face select mode, which is shortcut is 3 to get to face select mode. 3 along the top row of numbers. E to extrude. If I don't want to extrude, I can right click and it goes back, or E to extrude and then left click to apply. We're really having fun with these now. G. Okay. If I click and hold, so over here, extrude region. If you click and hold on this tool here, you can actually see that there are several different ways to extrude. And let me illustrate some of those differences for you right now. So I'm going to tab, go back into object mode. I'm going to delete this. Shift A, and rather than a cube this time, I want to do a UV sphere. And I think the default value is 32 segments, 16 rings is fine for me. Okay. I'm going to go tab for edit mode, and I'm going to select I'm going to hold down the shift key. So I've selected one of the faces here. I'm holding down the shift key, and I'm going to select like 4 or 5 in a row like this. Now, my regular extrude, if I go E to extrude, it's going to kind of bring them all straight out. So they're all coming straight out, exact same size as they were before. So that's like the default way to extrude. That's just regular extrude region. I'm going to undo that, Control Z. If I do extrude along normals, let's just see what effect this has. So I click and hold on my extrude tool here, and I selected extrude along normals. So I'm going to, use my pull on this yellow thing and extrude this out. Now, see the difference. They kind of fanned out a little bit. Now, here's your boring math lesson for the day. What is a normal? What does normal mean in a 3D world? Okay. So if you have a polygon, how do I want to do this? If you have a polygon like, I don't know, I got to color in white, I guess. So if you have what is even happening? Brush. Pause. Okay, silly me. Okay, so if you have a polygon, that's kind of like this. Sort of a rectangle. The normal is the outside of a polygon, and it signals two things. It signals which side of the polygon is the outside and the exact perpendicular direction away from it. So if we're looking at this polygon, that we're kind of looking at an angle here. If we're looking at it from exactly the side, we're looking straight along the edge of it like this. The normal is a perfect 90-degree angle from that polygon. 9, 0. That is the normal. So thinking about what this means, if we're extruding along normals, this one is extruded straight out from where that original polygon was where it was pointed. Same with all these ones. So that's why they kind of got wider, because they're continuing along the path straight forward. And because these four are pointed in 4 different directions, they kind of diverge a little bit. So that's what normal means. You'll hear more about normals soon enough. Okay, so that's extrude along normals. I'm gonna Control Z, undo that. The other one I'll show you is extrude individual, and hopefully by the little illustration here you can understand what that means. So if I extrude individual here, they have now separated. So they maintain their size, but they just, again, move straight up. It's along normals, but then they are disconnected. So just different types of extrusion. I mean, usually you'll just do a regular extrude. Extrude manifold, let's see what that does. I don't know if I ever actually use that. Extrude manifold. Yeah, it seems to be just like the normal extrude. I don't know. And extrude to cursor, that's sort of like if you need to do a wacky extrusion, and it'll just go to wherever your mouse is. It seems a little ridiculous. Okay, so that's extrude. All right, so let's, I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to delete my cube. Shift A, I'm going to add a regular cube back in here. Okay, Tab to get into edit mode. The next one I want to look at is insert faces. So insert faces is this one here. The keyboard shortcut is also I. But insert faces, let's just see what it does. So I have one of my cube faces selected here. I have this little yellow ring. If I click and hold and drag it in, I'm inserting faces inside that face. So you can see that it kind of drew in the edges and created a smaller version of it on the inside. So now, like this might be a good way to like make a window. So then what I could do is I could go back and I could go to extrude and then select this in, and it's like, oh, now I've got an empty box. Again, and note, anytime you're doing one of these tools, using any of these modeling tools, when you do the action, you can see that, again, your kind of quick menu pops up on the bottom here. It may be minimized, but you can change these values. So like I already did my left click and applied this insert faces, but I can adjust it. I can change the thickness here by dragging like this. You can, check some of these things, see if it really makes a difference. You can also change the depth for insert faces. Lots of cool things. Keyboard shortcut for insert faces is I. So if you have your selection tool and you have a face selected, you can just do I, insert faces, E, extrude. Oops. I, insert faces, E, extrude. I, insert faces, E, extrude. Cool. It's a tower of boxes. Another quick keyboard shortcut, A. If you hit A, that selects everything. A for all. Oh man, I forgot a good one. Going back to, let's talk about edge select for a little bit. So that's 2 on your number pad. You can actually extrude an edge like this. So if you have one edge selected, I've got this edge selected here, you can extrude an edge and it kind of makes a flat plane come out of there. It can be a little messy, but I don't know, maybe sometimes you need to do that. Also, a quick selection tip, you can select a loop. And actually, maybe this is better illustrated. I'm going to go Tab to get an object mode. I'm going to G move that out of the way. Shift A. I'm going to add a UV sphere again. Tab for edit mode. I meant to do this earlier. I'm going to hit 3 for face select. to select a loop, there's a shortcut to select a loop all the way around, or the computer will attempt to find a loop based on how you're selecting. But if you have an object or a face or an edge selected, and you hold down the Alt key and select the one next to it, it's going to attempt to select the loop. So a sphere is a really nice way to make a loop. So like if I try to select, so I selected one and then I hold down the Alt key and I'm selecting the one to the right of it, it's going to, oh, unintended, to the left, it went around. You can also go the other direction too. So if you go, see, now it's not doing the way I want it to. If I still have one selected and I do Alt and I select the one above it, oh, see, why is it doing that? Strange behavior. It attempted to make a loop selection this way around the sphere, but because a regular sphere kind of meets at a point here, they call this a triangle fan, that the computer does not compute. How do I find the one across from here? So anyway, loop select. So same thing works for edges. So if I go to hit the number 2 and I have an edge selected here, I can hold on the Alt key and click the one next to it, and it'll attempt to select the loop. Maybe you don't even need to do the one next to it. Maybe I've just been doing it wrong my whole life. Okay, here we go. Tab, back into object mode. I'm going to delete my cube. And I'm going to delete this one as well. I'm in object mode. You can see up here. Shift A. Let's add a cube. Boring old cube. Tab to get into edit mode. Okay, next one let's look at is bevel. Hopefully you're aware of beveling. I'm going to go 2 for edge select. And I want to select just this edge, maybe this top edge here. Actually, no, I'll do Alt. I'll Alt click and I'll hit. Hello? Select the loop. You know, loop selection doesn't necessarily always work for me. Okay, bevel. I got my bevel tool here. Is it going to do anything? Okay, that was strange. My little tooltip wasn't popping up. So I have the bevel tool selected. I'm going to shift click on all of these edges on the top here. So I have this little yellow, what do you call that? A pin. I guess they call it a pin. And I can click and drag on this and draw it to the left or the right, and it's going to add a bevel. Now, I think while you're doing it, oh gosh, if I'm clicking and holding, doing my bevel, I think if you roll your middle mouse wheel, so you can see I still have my left mouse button clicked, but you can roll your middle mouse wheel to change the like number of bevels. You also if I release the left click, I also have my bevel menu down here that pops up, and I can change these values here. So I can say the number of segments, make that 1, 2, 3, 4. I can change the shape of it so I can have it stick out more or actually suck in a little bit. You know, lots of other little things you can do here. Change the width of it so you can make it real tiny, a really tight one. So bevels are nice ways to add just a little bit of detail. Bevels can cause trouble down the line, and I'll explain all that later. But bevels are nice to start. So if I do Control Z to undo the bevel, I'll hit A to select all of my edges. And keyboard shortcut for bevel is B. Or is it? Control B, sorry. Control B to bevel. And so you can just, you can have like a nice little beveled cube here. You can roll the middle mouse wheel to change that, or you can turn it into kind of this strange shape. Roll the middle mouse wheel. There you go. And then you can right click to undo, or Control B, do your bevel, left click to apply. And as always, you can change the value of these things. Cool. So that's bevel. Tab for edit mode. Sorry, tab for object mode. Let's delete this. Let's Shift A. And let's add a cube. So tab, edit mode. The one that may not appear to be super useful, but surprisingly is very powerful, is the loop cut one. So let's hit the loop cut. So what a loop cut does is it's going to attempt to find a path around your object and just add a new set of edges all the way around. So you can see as I hover over my cube on different sides, there's this yellow loop that it previews around it. So you can left click to add a loop. Oops, did I click too fast? Left click to add a loop. Oh, sorry. Okay, so if you do a quick left click, it's gonna place a loop cut in the dead center of your space here. I'm gonna undo that. If you left click and hold, you can actually kind of move this around where you want it to be. If you want it to be a little closer to the top or closer to the bottom. And then you can release that. Obviously, you can change the value as usual here. So if you do a factor of 0.5. No, is that what I wanted? No, factor of 0, I think is going to be dead center. Yes, yes, yes. And then you go negative value, positive value like this. You can also, here in your loop cut quick menu here, you can add the number of cuts. So it'll evenly distribute, 6, 7 cuts here along the way. I believe also, oops, let me undo that. Control Z, sorry. If I click and hold, no. For some reason I thought there was a way that like you could roll the middle mouse wheel and it'll do more cuts for you. Anyway, why is this a valuable thing? So it allows you to have more specific extrusions and like details in your mesh. So like, let's say I wanted to have just like I wanted to have like 2 sections kind of jut out of here. So I could do my loop cuts like this, and then I could go to my, actually I'll pretty much always want my selection tool. And I wanted to kind of select this loop here, and I'm holding down the shift key, and I also want to select these faces here. And then I want to extrude. Oh no, but I don't want to extrude like that. I want to extrude along normals like this. Ah, yeah. And I'm just creating, I don't know, just some sort of like waist high barricade for my game for someone to have cover behind. It's a futuristic cover box. So that's loop cut. Keyboard shortcut tab to get into edit mode. Keyboard shortcut is Control R for loop cut. So you can see that even now that I have this here, even though I have these details, it'll still be able to like make a loop cut around it. So click left click to do that. I don't know, and then maybe I'll get my selection tool back out again. And oh, okay. X-ray selection. So let's say I wanted to grab all of the faces on one side. So I did this loop cut. Let's say I wanted to grab all the faces on this right side. So right now, if I hit 3 for face select, and I want to get just everything on the right side here. If I'm looking at it this way, I don't get anything on this side. So one thing that can be handy sometimes in concert with an orthographic view is this little button way up here, toggle X-ray. The keyboard shortcut is Alt-Z, but that's also, if I do Alt-Z, it's the keyboard for my graphics card, so I can't actually do Alt-Z. But I can click this toggle X-ray, and so what it does is it sort of makes it your thing transparent, and you can see these little black dots, and these are the selection dots. So if you do your box selection on these dots, you can do it through your object. So now if I do an orthographic, and I just select the right half like this, it's selected all of them. And I can even go back to regular view, and you can say, ah, yes. Now it's looking good, and we can extrude along normals like this and just make my cover box even more awkward. Great. Yes, it's already getting really messy. My geometry is getting messy in here. We'll talk about what to do with messy geometry at a later date. Okay. So Control R is loop cut. Delete that. Final thing before we kind of talk a practical example. You know, just add a regular plane in. And let's do a top-down view. So the final thing I'll show you in edit mode tab is the knife tool. And just like bevel, knife tool can be useful, but it also can cause trouble. So just use at your own risk. I think for this first or for assignment 2, it's no problem if you want to use the knife tool. But the knife tool is basically your cutting edges. So my cursor is a little knife here, so you can click and click and click, and all of these are going to be new cuts, new edges. You can even complete a loop like that, and spacebar. If you hit spacebar, it will apply the cut. Now you can see it needs to connect with like another edge or another vertice somewhere. So it kind of added these two little zoop, zoop cuts just to kind of make sense of it, because the computer can't handle a lot of these n-gons, and maybe we'll talk about n-gons another day. But so now we have some more geometry to work with a knife tool. So you know, I could go 3 for face select, 3 for face select. Hello. 3 for face select, and select this one, and I can extrude this one up, and it's like, oh, now I got this cool shape, and I can extrude this one, and also, whoops, oh gosh, undo. I could extrude this out in G, and I could S, and then I could extrude this out again and scale it down. So anyway, I've seen a lot of people use the knife tool to add like little details like that. So sort of like I don't know, if this was a wall, RX90, and maybe, you know, there's just like a little vine growing off down this wall. So you might take the knife tool. Keyboard shortcut is K for knife. You might get into an orthographic view if you would. I seem to be having trouble with my... here we go. If there was like a vine crawling down this wall, you might take the knife tool. Okay, please. There we go. And I'd start a click here, and then like I may kind of like have it sort of wind down like this, and maybe it kind of grows like this, and then it's like I'll zoom in to get a little bit more detail, but maybe it just kind of does this. I don't know. I'm doing this so fast, and it's like maybe a little bit ridiculous how fast I'm actually doing this. And then spacebar to apply, and then I could extrude. Whoops. 3 for face select. Just select this one. I could extrude. It doesn't help if I'm in an orthographic view. You could, extrude, and it's like, oh, there's my little vine on the wall or something. I don't know. So knife tool for adding details, adding cuts that you might need. It's also useful sometimes if you're cleaning up your mesh. I call it your topology. And if you have like kind of messy polygons, sometimes you may need to add cuts so that things play a little nicer. Obviously, we'll talk about that later. But like a lot of you ready for more nerd? Okay, here we go. Back to paint. Oh, erase. No. New. File. New. Don't save. Bucket. There we go. Okay. Polygon. There's a lot of rectangles. How a computer calculates a 3D face, a 3D polygon, is it actually divides everything into triangles. So if you have a rectangle, the computer goes, okay, let's make this rectangle first. Let's cut it in half. And now we've got 2 triangles. Ah, triangles. Yes, triangles work. It's sort of like, I don't know why this is the example that sticks in my head, but like I used to watch the old show from the like 70s called Hawaii Five-0. They rebooted it. But anyway, they would always need to like triangulate someone's phone call, and you need 3 points in order to triangulate where the phone call was coming from. And a computer needs 3 points to make a face. So let's look at this. So so we have a square here. If I edit this and I grab, if I go 1 for vertex select, and I grab this vertex and I G move it like this, you can see that this is very clearly 2 triangles. You know, like there's this one and there's this one. Like I took this square and I bent it. Yet this is, you know, officially a 4-sided shape. So it's like, it's sort of deceiving, but like this is how computers work. Everything has to be triangles. So you can see, or hopefully you can anticipate now, that if I have, let me undo. If I have a 5-sided shape, well, now how do we divide this into triangles? So the computer probably goes like, well, I guess we can do this, and then we can do this. Oops. And then we can do this. There we go. Now we got 3 triangles. So the more sides you have, the more like dividing needs to happen in order for the computer to comprehend it. So like if we have a 6-sided shape like this, and more often than not, it doesn't find the simplest version. Like a lot of they usually end up meeting in 1 point. And when you have a lot of edges and shapes meeting in 1 point, that's when things can get messy in your models. So like if this is a 6-sided shape, we got to split into 4 triangles. Anyway, I have no memory of why I even started talking about this. I apologize. So anyway, in 3D, a shape that has more than 4 sides is called an n-gon. N, the letter N, because it's just like a number more than 4, n-gon. So here's actually a practical example at work. If I delete this here, if I go Shift A and you add a cylinder, when you open up your Add Cylinder menu, you can see cap fill type. You can do n-gon or you can do triangle fan. So like if we do n-gon for the cap of the cylinder here, and I go Tab into Edit mode, I just want this top one, and I insert faces. You can see that it's like a 32-sided shape, which can be problematic. If I Shift A and add a cylinder and I do triangle fan and do edit mode, you can see like, oh, well, now we have a bunch of triangles. Again, like this point can be a problem for some things, but it's better. Anyway, okay, that's n-gons. Okay, a final thing to be aware of in edit mode, and then we're gonna look at a practical example. So let me add another thing in here. Add a monkey just to mix it up a little bit. Okay. The final important thing to know about edit mode is the origin point. In other 3D programs, if you use After Effects or something like that, the origin point is analogous to the anchor point. It's sort of like the point that signals where it is and where it and it will rotate around your origin point. So I added a monkey into the scene here. The origin point is signaled by this little orange dot in the center of it. And that is the marker for its location. So this orange dot is the origin point. And it is located at the coordinates 0, 0, 0. Now, if I'm in object mode and I move this monkey this way, the origin point, moved with it, and now its location has changed. Control Z, undo. If I'm in edit mode and I'm editing this monkey, like say like, oh, well, I want it to be like up and here, and also I'm going to grab this bit and I'm going to G move these over here. Also, like I'm going to take the forehead and extrude like this, and then I'm going to X-ray select, and I'm gonna go side view or front view, and I'm gonna just take his whole face and go GZ and move his face way down there. Okay. And then, you know what? I actually am gonna just do A to select all, and I'm just gonna kind of G move it here like this. So notice all of these things, or none of these things, affected the origin point. So if I go back into object mode, and if I turn off X-ray select, I can now when I rotate, it's rotate like all of my polygons have moved away from the origin point. Probably a bad thing for you. So you can try to fix it. The other handy shortcut is when you're in object mode, you can go object up here on the menu, set origin, and you can. There's obviously several options, but you can set the origin to the center of the geometry, like this. So if I click that, you can see that the origin point just kind of moved. If I undo that, you can kind of do the reverse too. So if I go object, set origin, geometry to origin, and it'll move everything to that. So that's just one kind of thing to be aware of. This little orange dot in the center of your object is the origin point, and that's what signals the location and signals how much it's rotating. That's the point that it will rotate around. So it may make sense for some things to rotate like along the very bottom of it. So like this is maybe a terrible example. But like if you were making a clock and you had like the hands on a clock. So if I go SY like this, and SX like this, and SZ like this. Okay, this is my very crude clock hand. So you wouldn't want a clock hand to rotate like this. You would tab. I'd be in an orthographic view. A to select all, and I'd go GZ, and I move it up like this, and I move it right to the origin point. I maybe even get in really close, and you go GZ like this, and just put the bottom right on the origin point. And so then the hand of your clock now will rotate like this. So that's just something to be aware of. A reason you might want your origin point to move. Okay, delete this. Let's model a super duper basic thing. And I'm actually gonna move sort of quickly because then we'll talk about assignment 2. So if before you watched this lecture, you may have modeled a chair like this. Shift A, mesh, cube. SZ, this is the seat of my chair. Great. Shift A, mesh, cube. S to scale. Shift Z, make a leg. This is a chair leg. I'm going to do my top down view. I'm going to go G, move this one here. Shift D to duplicate that leg. Yeah, put that one there. Shift D, duplicate that one. Shift D, duplicate that one. Great. And 1 for my front view. I'm going to grab all these cubes. I'm going to GZ, move them down. All right, we're almost there. I'm going to grab these 2 in the back. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate, Z, move these up in the Z. Great. Let's do my front view. Let's go Shift D, move one here, Shift D, move one here, Shift D, and then Shift D, RX90. Whoop. Not RS90. What have I done? Okay. There you go. RX90. Okay. Boom. Okay, chair. Done. That maybe is how you would have made a chair before watching this lecture. And it's still a valid way to make a chair. Okay, here's your quick shortcut. Parenting. Parenting is a thing That happens in other programs too, but if you want, rather than needing to select all of these objects, rather than needing to select all these objects and move them like this, you can parent them to one thing. So if you select all of these and then shift click on the seat is the active selection. So if you select multiple objects, they all kind of turn this orangish. But your active selection is the most recently selected one, and it's sort of this lighter color orange. If you want this seat to be the parent and to control all the other things, Control P brings up your parent menu and it says set parent to object. You can see that it actually draws these little dotted lines to say like, oh yes, we are parented to this. So now if I just move the seat, and actually up here in my scene collection, top right, maybe you noticed, but now it's like a hierarchy. All of these cubes are kind of twirled under this main cube here, so that we could even call this chair. Chair. So now if I move this one, it'll move the whole thing. If you click to one of those individuals, it's going to still move that thing. But if you just select the seat there. Okay, anyway. Now, if you were to make a chair using modeling tools, it might look something like this. So you'd probably start off the same way. Start with a cube. GZ. Oops, not GZ. SZ. Scale down that a little bit. But now we might tab into edit mode. And maybe we'll add some loop cuts. So I'm going to do Control R. Oh yeah, so if I do Control R and I middle mouse wheel, it increases the number of cuts. And you know what, before I even do that, let's do this. Let's select the bottom here and let's insert faces just a little bit. So we've got like a little bit of an edge. And then I'm going to Control R, do 2 loop cuts here like this. Nice. And then because I want it to be in the center, I'm just going to right click and that'll keep it in the center. Control R again. I'm going to do 2 loop cuts here like this. Great. Oops. And then right click. Okay. Okay. Now with these 2 selected, I'm actually going to scale these apart in the X axis like this. And then I want to loop select these edges as well. So I have 2 for edge select, and I'm going to Alt click to get that loop. Hold on the Shift key, and I'm going to Alt click this one too. So I have both of those loops selected. I maybe did that fast. So I want to select both of these loops so I can scale them away from each other. So I'm holding on the Alt key. I'm clicking this one here to select that whole loop. I'm holding down the Shift key because I want to add another selection. Also holding down Alt. I want to click on one of these edges here. So I've selected both of these edge loops all the way around. Okay, then I'm going to S to scale these apart, Y. Hopefully you can kind of see why I'm doing this. It's because I want to have sort of 4-ish square faces here. This one, this one, this one, and this one to extrude to be my leg. So right now I'm just going to go, let's even do an orthographic view-ish. E-extrude. Great. Cool. Cool. So, yeah, we've got our chair going there. Now let's take these 2 on the top. Maybe I insert faces here too a little bit just to give it a little bit more edge. We can e-extrude like this. That's a nice looking chair. Now what do we do? How do we connect these? Let me add a loop cut here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to do Control R here, add another loop cut, but right click. So I know that these loop cuts are exactly in the center. Let's do my front orthographic view. I'm going to turn on X-ray select and just get these, and I'm going to GZ move these way up here. And then maybe I will take, let's go edit mode. Oops, let's turn off X-ray select. 3 for face select. Let's extrude this one across here. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, if I extrude, these just kind of run into each other, and that can be kind of messy too. for today, for just learning, it's probably fine. But here's a little trick for you. If I delete this face, you can actually delete faces. So with this face selected, I'm gonna hit the delete key. You've got some options, but I just want to delete faces. You can actually see there's a hole there now. And let's hit that one and delete that one, faces. And actually, you know what? I don't even think you need to do that. If I let me undo it. If I select both of these, I think you can right click and bridge faces. This is what we want. Oh, will it work? Yeah, it will. Huh. And it bridged it. I think. Oh yeah, and so even maybe this is something sort of new, but you can see inside that it actually did kind of remove that extra thing anyway. So very cool. So then, and then what we could even do again, just to have a little bit more detail, maybe I'll I insert faces on the bottom here and make this narrow, and then maybe we can Control R, add a bunch of loop cuts like this. Maybe, hopefully that's enough. 3 for face select, and let's see if I can do every other. Whoops. If I hold down the Shift key, I can go ching, 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 ching. Oh, it's an odd number. So maybe I'll GY, just kind of try to center it up a little bit. And E, extrude this down here like that. Oh, there's a chair. That's also a chair. Now, so, oh, and you know, let's do a little bit more. Let's even add, let's do a bevel. So I'm going to go 2 for edge select. I'm going to alt click this. Can we get all the way around? Alt click. Alt click. There we go. Oh, not quite. Alt click. I'm just trying to get these edges all the way around. Okay. Let's do a bevel here like this. So B, nope, Control B, sorry. Control B is bevel tool. Oh yeah, you can see it's a little bit messy. We've created a mess. Let's see. So if I click, let's just see what options we have here. We can offset. Let's see. Width, depth. Maybe if we change some of these, percentage, width percent. Yeah, like I said, bevel can be challenging. I'm gonna skip that. Pretend that didn't happen. Maybe along the top here we'll do a bevel. We'll just have a little rounded back like that. So let's let me go edge select, or sorry, side view, X-ray select all of these ones here. Is that doing the trick? Again, these are details that I probably do not need to spend any time on. Add a little bevel here. I don't know. Just trying to be fancy. Okay. It looks dumb. Anyway, so you can see now that using modeling tools allows us to have a little bit more detail, a little bit more control, and the advantage of having this be like one solid piece, that we're not kind of Frankensteining different pieces together. Not to say that you don't need to, that you shouldn't do the blah blah. Not to say that this isn't a good way to do it sometimes if you need to. Like if you need something super simple and quick and dirty and it's in the background, like no problem. You can definitely do it this way. But if you're wanting to add more detail and have more control, or use things like modifiers, which we'll talk about later, using modeling tools and techniques is definitely going to be your friend. And that's not to say that everything needs to be one piece. Like with assignment 2, like you don't need to have it all be one chunk. Like a lot of times it does make sense to have separate things. Like I don't know, like let's say for example you had there was like a seat cushion on top of this. So you would probably just like, you could have it as a totally separate object. So like, I don't know, take this take a UV sphere and just like SZ, like squash it down and like, I don't know, like put it on here, scale it down, GZ. And like, maybe that's your cushion, you know? And it doesn't like, it can be a separate object, and like just call this cushion. Oh, you guys, is that how you spell cushion? I'd be so embarrassed if that's not how you spell cushion. SH? That feels wrong. Anyway, um, you also can join separate objects together. So like if I have this one and I select this one, or select both these objects, you can Control J to join, and it becomes one object. Obviously, like that can be messy too, because now this like sphere is kind of inside of it. But I don't know, maybe. Okay, let's talk about assignment 2. Okay, sorry, blinding. Oh no, can I do dark mode? I have this dark mode thing. It doesn't really work. Okay, assignment 2, model a desk. Use the modeling tools to create a desk. Look at some reference materials, or maybe your own desk that you're sitting at right now. Please include materials and lights and render an image of your desk. If you wish to take this further, you can add some more objects to your desk, like a computer or a lamp or a pencil cup or a keyboard or whatever. So 6 points. Use of modeling tools and techniques. These things, materials, lights, and render, we will talk about next week. So if you're kind of taking this in chunks, first part should be just to like get your modeling under control, and then part 2 next week when you watch the lecture, you'll learn about adding some basic materials using lights, cameras, and rendering. So next week we'll do like a super duper crash course in that stuff. So 5 points for an on-time submission and shared with the class. Yeah, so again, like a desk is a very basic shape, or can be a very basic shape. It really helps to go off of something. It's hard for some people, for many people, to just like spring a desk out of your imagination. So just like do an internet search, or just look at the desk in front of you, or a desk in your room or in your house. And like just start. Think about which of these primitive mesh shapes to start with. Probably a rectangle, maybe not. Are the legs of your desk rounded? Are there drawers? How would you do drawers? Maybe the drawers are a separate object that you just kind of place in there. Or if you have a lamp, like what would you do for a lamp? Would you start with a cylinder and kind of expand out the bottom and cut out the top, and then maybe a light bulb in there? So this is part of the exercise, and like deciding which primitive meshes to start with and how to get to what you want to model from one of these primitives is a skill that you will continue to work on your entire career as a 3D creator. It's something that I still am like where do I begin? That's like oftentimes the biggest hurdle. So again, this week focus on modeling, and then next week we'll add some materials and lights, and I'll show you how to render and stuff like that. So to tie it all together, okay. It's just about an hour. So I don't think I think the chair was a reasonable enough example. But if I was gonna start with my desk, I mean, a desk is like a chair. You guys got it. You understand. You know. So this is exciting to me. I think like this is for me when I was learning 3D. This is where it started to click a little bit. That it was like, oh, you can do that, and you can do this, and and this is how. Okay. Again, in this class, we are here to practice and learn, and your assignments, hopefully you've noticed, are not graded or judged by their appearance. They're graded and judged by you completing the tasks, basically, following the directions and practicing. So do some practicing. I watched a really cool video that I will maybe share with you. Maybe I'll link it down below. And it was by Adam Savage. Is that his name? Adam Savage, the guy from MythBusters. Adam Savage. Yes, yeah, Adam Savage. He's got a YouTube channel and puts out lots of cool videos. But one of the cool things that I watched recently was him talking about like being a generalist and versus like being a master of a very specific thing. And he was talking about chess, and that, like, you know, you can learn the rules of chess very quickly. You learn all the pieces and what movements they can make and how the game ends, and you can start playing chess within an hour of knowing nothing. But it's like after 10 games, you kind of start to learn a couple tricks. After 100 games, you've learned a few more tricks, and you've gained some experience and some strategy. After 1,000 games, it starts to be less of like knowing the rules and more about knowing kind of the feel of it. And after 10,000 games, it's like you've transcended like the rules and the pieces, and it's become an art playing chess. And I drew some parallels to like being a creative person too, and like learning a specific tool or a skill like 3D. That it's like when you're first starting, it's like it looks so dumb. Like my desk looks awful. I hate it. It's like no. It's not about how it looks. Right now, it's just about learning. And if you like get some satisfaction out of improving and getting better at it, then you should continue to do it. Anyway, so moral of that tangent is you're here to practice, and your assignments are here to practice. So like, don't be too hard on yourself, and spend time practicing. So yeah, like it's only after 10,000 games of chess when it starts to feel like you've mastered it. So it takes time, but we'll get you there. Anyway, please email if you have questions. Please begin modeling a desk and if you wish, put some things on your desk too. You can have like several little things on your desk. And then next week we'll talk about adding materials so they're not all just gray blobs. We'll talk about lighting and cameras and rendering, which will also be kind of part of your assignment 2. So your assignment 2 will be due in 2 weeks before our next Zoom. That's all. Good luck. Email with questions. Goodbye.